My fellow citizens of all nations, what is human nature? Or what is the nature of human society? I've been thinking about this for quite some time right now, and each time I had different mood changes, and in different situations I started to look at this question differently, and I started to come up with different answers. So the answer to the question of what is human nature and what's the nature of human society fundamentally depends on individual experience, but regardless of individual experiences and correct mood we are in, I think there is overall answer to this question which is very clear and which is regardless of the mood or the feelings we have at this present moment. Let's think about it this way. I want you to think about now. Let's say I come up to you and I say to you the following sentence. Hello, somebody else's child just died. What would be your reaction? Your reaction probably would be like, oh my god, so sad, this is very bad, what happened? Or you would be like, well, death happens all the time, what's a big deal? Or you could have been one of those type of people that's like, okay, great, somebody died, I'm on the side of death. That could also happen. And another situation, the same scenario. I come up to you and I say to you, hello, your child just died. What would be your reaction? You see, when in first scenario somebody comes up to you and tells you somebody else's child just died, your reaction is different. On second scenario, when somebody comes up to you and tells you that, hello, your child just died, your reaction and emotions are completely different. Suddenly, it's not just somebody's child. Suddenly, it's your child. This does not have to mean much, but I want you to have this example in your mind because this is the perspective. Now, if we look at the example of this and analyze how we view the world, we realize that as a human beings, we are incapable of feeling certain emotions when it's just a random person. For certain people, we are willing and we want to make incredible sacrifices, and we care about some people's well-being much more than we would care about other people's well-being. And this is just part of our culture, or should I say our instincts, because our primal head, we think that measure of our survival depends on people around us, how people around us are, not just some random people. And if we were to look at this question differently, let's say that somebody argues that, you know what, human nature is really good and we are all just kind and full of love. Now, what type of argument can you bring up to prove your point? Well, such type of people usually like to say, or they claim so, that the world is a really beautiful place and there is some sort of a universal love and universal brotherhood, universal understanding, something like some grand view of the world of universal brotherhood. But does universal brotherhood really exist in a tribalistic society? Remember the first example I brought. For example, let's take this example to a level of a nation. So let's increase the scale of the example, but example fundamentally will stay the same. For example, we see people protesting, especially in multicultural and multi-ethnic cities that has like much more bigger, how should I say, different cultures in it. Right? People, for example, protest because there is certain injustice or they so perceive so going on in a certain place, and usually people that show up to the type of places are at least the first people that show up to the type of places are people that have some sort of relation to that place. For example, let's say some disaster is going on in a certain place. Well, my sister is from that place. My sister and her husband, her family live there, and I come here right now to demand that the people or the government should do something to stop this. Now, would I show up there if not my family members were part of it? That's questionable. That's really questionable because usually, and you know, you can observe it, but people, we are tribalistic and we take matter of our own sort of ethnic group or religious group, social group, much more seriously than we would take problems of other groups, and that could be proved easily. Let's say you are from country X and you live in country Z. Do you care about country W, for example? Do you know much about that country? Do you check the news about that nation? Do you, I don't know, do charity for that nation or do some proactive steps for that nation? Or why do you have a specific nation or the other one? Same for religion, right? Why do certain religious people just help their own? Like, why won't they just help everybody? And of course, some could argue that there are groups that just help everyone and they care about everyone. Or okay, I think there is a certain point to that, but you should get the point. It's not about just religion; it's about human nature right now, and you could see probably this pattern appearing all the time. Now, the division basically. For us, certain people with different cultures, different mindsets are just random people, and we don't care so much. But if it touches us, we show much more interest toward it. And this discussion opens a lot of loopholes, and you should also be able to see right now how these things could be manipulated, how these things about human nature could be used to manipulate large-scale society. A third point and third example. Would a person necessarily take a revolver and pull the trigger? I think if you were to give like most people a revolver and tell them that, hey, pull the trigger, most people would be like in denial. What are you talking about? Are you insane? What do you mean like pull the trigger? Pull the trigger toward what? Why? I mean, that would be all the logical questions most people would ask. Okay, and let's say, okay, pull the trigger toward this young person. I mean, most people would be like, send this man to a mental hospital, this madman. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why should I pull the trigger toward the young person? Because if a person personally pulls the trigger, there is a main personal responsibility there. But if person does not do it personally, then suddenly there is no direct personal responsibility. How does it translate to a real life scenario? For example, let's say I want something so badly that I don't care about what consequences my action might have. For example, somebody has this grand project and they want to destroy the entire forest, uproot all the animals that live there, uproot all the ecosystem, like destroy, because for the sake of this altar of growth, for the sake of quality of human life, right? The ecosystem is uprooted because development needs to come and it's absolutely necessary for this to happen this way because you know what, we don't want to spend extra money to do it properly. And suddenly we have like this unusual weather all around the world. I'm sure unless you don't live on planet Earth, you have noticed that we have such unusual weather. Like it could be sunny day and suddenly there is just a rain. It's not just rain, just ridiculous rain. Like it comes down so fast and so many that streets are flooded and houses are flooded. And I've also experienced that, by the way, flooding because like the weather just so unusual and so much more rain generally comes down. And I believe like a lot of people on this planet at this point have noticed this type of weather difference. Now, that's the thing. Like there is not necessarily personal responsibility on destroying the ecosystem or producing this waste that just pollutes the planet and pollutes us. Or let's take even a simple thing as like throwing a garbage like properly, like instead of just throwing it some random place. Like there is no, that person might not necessarily feel personal responsibility, but when later that person finds out that his house is no longer there and he might be like, let's not wish some people bad things, but some disaster happens to that person might be like, oh my god, what did I done for this? And instead of focusing on these bigger questions, like people usually do what they have to do, and most of the time pretext is that, okay, I don't know, like I have to survive, and these people and these concerns are legitimate. Of course development needs to happen, of course production needs to go up, and of course people deserve better quality of life, but better quality of life should not mean like destroying ecosystem of the planet, because most people will just not survive this. Food does not just grow on air, it needs a proper climate and people, we need food and etc. All these things. And this is the third and on the most important example. Sometimes we might be doing something very bad, but we might not necessarily feel personal responsibility, and we might not be able to connect the dots. And I believe that most of us, we cannot do it because it is a very difficult thing. It is very difficult to connect these dots. Like, how is it my responsibility exactly that that thing happened there and that there? I mean, let's say it about myself. Maybe by recording this video, I am doing something bad or something good, but I'm incapable of seeing it, but I'm doing it on a good faith that I believe that recording this, I am contributing to good, and I'm expanding the discussion, and I am providing certain teaching and sharing certain perspective toward the world, which I believe will be useful. But is it so? I cannot say it for certain. And this is another thing. People usually expect somebody to come up and say that we are either good, we are evil. They are evil, we are good. It has never happened in history where someone's like, we are bad and they are good. It was like always us versus them. It was Greeks and it were barbarians. Everybody else is barbarian. We are Greeks, we are civilized, but everybody else is barbarian. We are Germans and everybody is just... And we had this sort of thing in history. In every culture, older people probably have this attitude of, oh my God, we are so much better than them. These type of things exist in society, and not only about this type of things, but in other stuff, like this belief in crowds, in societies, that somehow they are superior, somehow they are much better. And these type of differences make us forget a lot of basic stuff. Like, who cares who you are? We breathe the same air, we live on the same planet, we probably walk same roads, we probably are happy, we are probably in pain, and so much things we have in common. But again, what usually wins in society is as a sword. Who could argue that all the ideas that exist in correct society and correct people, that's their choice. Somebody came with a book, with 100,000 pages worth of book, and they sit down and they argued amongst each other what was right and what was wrong. But usually, if you look at the history, it's very few people just mastering and ordering a bunch of other people, and people lacking belief in themselves, belief and certain intelligence, they just fall toward this trap and they become what they become. And also, it is so unfair to say that all the societies are just the same. There are different societies and different developments and with different cultures that are on a different stages, and it should not even be a big deal. But once we look at this from the same point of understanding, it becomes something else. And if we look at it from the point of judgment, it becomes completely another thing. So if we say that humans are evil, well, that could be argued. But usually, if we notice and if we look at people that have done a lot of bad, most of the time they don't dare to come to society directly and tell them that they are evil. Even they try to convince people that they are the right ones, that they are the good guys in the story. And whether they believe themselves that they are good or bad, it's irrelevant. Point I'm trying to make here is that majority of society needs to believe that their cause is just, and that is, for me, more than enough to say that human nature is good or neutral. At best good, at worst just neutral. Neither good nor bad. And if we were to apply certain patterns in certain societies, that societies could move toward good or move toward evil. And just like the philosophical theory that claims that basically human beings, we are just this. When we are born, we are just this. So do I say that societies can be taught. And to say that human nature is evil and this is bad, it's just wrong. And there is no sufficient evidence to prove that. Of course, human beings will say selfish creatures and we are selfish. But selfishness does not equal evil. I think evil is a different thing. No matter where we stand today, where we will stand tomorrow will greatly depend on how we understand each other and how we understand the greater good and how rational we are while we pursue the greater good, and all the credit to the life goes to ourselves. It's not what is, what was, or what will be, but it's like what is inside us, because we don't perceive things as they are, but we perceive things as it is within us. So we directly and directly interpret the things, regardless of how they are, by how we feel inside and how we are inspired from early childhood to feel toward them.